Welcome to 5 Minutes, your quick dive into the wide-ranging world of insurance, technology, and leadership. I'm Miguel Edwards, and I'll be your guide as we explore these topics that are transforming not just the insurance industry, but the business world at large. Along with sharing observations I've made over the span of my career in insurance, technology, and operations, I'll be chatting with some of the brightest minds in business and leadership. Whether you're a seasoned executive or a rising star, an industry expert, or just curious about how technology is revolutionizing insurance, this is your perfect spot for your weekly dose of insights. This is 5 Minutes. Let's assume that the MGA is the market maker, if you will. The MGA is the one that is coveted. What do carriers have to think about to make themselves attractive to MGA partners or potential partners that really have, they've got a strong opportunity?
Honestly, I love to hear when MGAs have the privilege and the opportunity to have lots of different options on the table, because that's quite rare. Normally MGAs are struggling to find their first paper or their first reinsurance partner. So that's a fantastic situation to be in, number one.
Sure.
And that normally means that you can then, as a founder, negotiate some of those terms. Think about not give away as much margin or make the economics slightly more favorable, especially as a brand new startup. I think insurance companies already are attractive. I don't know that we necessarily have to make ourselves more attractive. I think it's more about, if you look at it more than just a capacity partnership, it's more of a holistic partnership. So what else am I bringing to the table? And I think it isn't just us marketing that, whether we have an investment fund, whether we have assistance with marketing, whether we can help you with distribution and make the right introductions to the right, partnerships for you to grow as an MGA. A lot of that is table stakes. I think a lot of insurance companies have that already in some shape or form, whether it's an official program or not. And so those are already on the table. I think to go beyond that, I think both the founders and the insurance companies need to have a longer term vision. So it's a partnership in that we're not just giving you paper for a year. We're giving you this paper for a year. In 3 years' time, I want to see it get this big. Then I can give you, more capacity, or we can then expand into a different. And so it's a very long-term vision type of partnership. And we've talked about this before, where MJs come into the industry, they want to be very disruptive, and I don't think they've necessarily been disruptive per se. It's more transformative. To your point of now together we're transforming the industry. It isn't them or us. As this is sort of what we've spoken to before of like one taking over the other. I don't think it's that. I think it's more, if we're able to make these partnerships work, this is the future, and this is what it could be, this is how big it could be. And I think if you go in with that mindset, it isn't so much like you look more attractive than that one. That's a better part. It's more about, where do you see that partnership being in 5-10 years from now? And I think that should be the mindset going in to make sure, increase your chances of success for both sides, not just one side or the other.
So, as we talk about that future and you start thinking about what these partnerships look like, one of the things that's kind of fascinating is I'm watching the regulatory landscape. Louisiana just passed a regulation requiring MGAs that have over $500 million of premium to report all these really heavy reporting requirements, et cetera. What are you guys thinking about in terms of how that regulatory dynamic is going to shift and how much responsibility remains with the carrier versus with the MGA? What does that look like for you guys in your thinking?
So I can't talk specifically to what our shows are regulators, but the general consensus is it doesn't change. Insurance companies have, since the beginning of time, had to work with local, state, federal regulators for a reason, especially if you think about, surplus lines business and things like that. So regulation is still going to very much drive how much innovation we can do, how we're able to underwrite for some of these new products, how we're able to even sell products that tap into some of these new emerging risks that we mentioned. And so I think if we continue to work with them and educate them on why these are very important, because it's new for everyone. Regulators don't necessarily understand or may not know the full extent of why we need to write this AI liability risk, why we need to tap into these cyber risks, why we need regulation and oversight over certain different things that are very new, like AI and LLMs and generative AI that are now being used to underwrite risks that then an insurance company could potentially be liable for. Understanding those chain of events, I think, is on us to help regulators understand, and also just the gravitas of how quickly we need to get this going, because we'll get into a position where, because the regulation is so far behind, and this extends beyond insurance, we're seeing this just in general, especially in the US, because it lags behind, there's only so much companies can do, only so much we can innovate, and only so much that we can use some of these new tools and solutions to be better in our own spaces. And without that regulation, it's really tough to make those decisions. So even as a carrier looking for MGA partners or an MGA looking for carrier partners, both sides need to also include some due diligence around their AI capabilities. Right. You might present to me as an MGA and you are using all these different tools and all these different solutions, but how do I know that they work?
Right.
How do I know this leads to better underwriting, better risk assessment if you don't have any data yet? So there's risks on both sides, and regulation helps mediate some of that, helps us feel more comfortable giving up balance sheet risk, giving up capacity and paper. And so I think we definitely need both. But working together has always been the consensus, and I don't think that's changing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned this notion of kind of MGAs kind of looking for partnerships and partners looking for MGAs, et cetera. Do you think that the market is efficient as it could be? I mean, does it feel as if that matchmaking happens as efficiently as it possibly could?
Short answer, no.
Yeah. Okay.
Long answer, there's pockets.
Yeah.
The MGA market is just so fragmented already. Throw in, brokers, reinsurance markets, fronting capacity providers, all these different players. Right. And there are different times in the year and events throughout the year where some of that happens, but it's not very well organized in one shape or form.
Right.
So if someone could just come in and create a brand new event where that was very curated.
I love that.
With everyone, in mind, as opposed to having to sift through thousands of opportunities throughout the year and figure out which one makes sense, or showing up to an event and having 105 meetings and leaving without any idea of who you met with. There needs to be maybe a middle ground of something a bit more curated, white glove, where you have the right people in the room, decision makers in the room, MJs that really know how to present and pitch and articulate. They're ready to just be in front of the right person and say the right thing to get decisions made quickly. That's the piece that takes a really long time, and some MGAs get frustrated with that. Even within a large company, it takes us a while to navigate who is the right person, and that could take a few weeks, that could take a few days, it could take a few months, and all of that leads to rough and ready relationships and bad experiences and bad taste left in your mouth almost. And I think we can get rid of some of that because it's not intentional. We all want to grow the business. We all want to write more business. We all want to underwrite better. It's very complex. So if someone has an idea of who could organize something like that,
something for us to think about.
Give me a call.
That's something for us to think about. Let me just, I'll finish on this real quick here. I think about, that complexity. Can you share just just roundabout thoughts around how many deals you typically would look at versus how many you actually action on? Because to me, again, it's like it's this mystery for me in terms of how active that market is. I can imagine for MGAs, it's like, I'm one out of how many that, partners are looking at. What do those numbers look like?
Honestly, there aren't standard numbers.
Okay.
It depends what type of investor or partner you are.
Yeah. So there's more opportunities in certain pockets than in other. Okay, I got it.
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. There are concentrated spaces, but I would say if you are an MGA, and you are looking for capacity for a certain thing, find out what these carrier and reinsurer partners are looking for first. Similarly with any consulting project, you go into the client, you ask them what their problems are, you ask them what they're trying to solve for, what are your biggest pain points, where do you want to grow, and then you come to with a proposal. I think having a similar mindset going into these conversations, yes, you have underwriting expertise, but you, insurance company A, are you looking to grow in this space? Is there something else that you're looking for? And I've had really great conversation with founders that find pockets that I mention and come up with solutions for those, whether it was the first thing they wanted to present to me or not. And that type of, flexibility, commercial relationship, that's a great start. And I'm not saying change your business model. I'm saying coming in and understanding that each investor, each capacity provider has different needs, different appetites, coming into the room ready to have those conversations and think a little bit outside of the box, problem-solving attitude. Normally, those conversations go quite far.
Yeah, I love that. I lied. I do just want to ask one last thing.
You said that 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. It's just I always do that because these other things. But so I would be remiss if I didn't ask you just in terms of what are you thinking about just in terms of the future? Like what do you have your eye on and just going to be helpful for MGAs that are out there listening to this in terms of where they should be going next? What are you thinking about for the future?
There are lots of different areas that we'd love to grow in. We've had a very specific focus on sort of smaller commercial business because we flourish in the large middle market space. And
Right.
so some of these digital partnerships that we seek are tapping into business that's easy to automate, easy to write in a very streamlined manner. So across all commercial specialty lines, anything that can tap into those and do it slightly differently. We've built technology capabilities ourselves that make us an easier partner to work with, because we can just plug through APIs. Not everyone has that. And so these are all the pieces that we've been building over the last few years that make us, a first choice digital partner, as we call it. And so anyone that thinks that they can fit that bill, of course, we'll have a conversation.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Risha, it's always a pleasure. Thank you
Of course.
so much.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you keep coming back.
I hope you keep inviting me.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you for joining this episode of 5 Minutes. If you've enjoyed our discussion, we'd love for you to share it with anyone else you think might find it interesting. Also, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on and hit that bell to stay on top of the game with our practical 5-minute episodes. We look forward to seeing you again next week.